Today, we're staying here in the US. With the 4th of July weekend ahead, what better way to celebrate the 4th than with a book about one of our unique states, which is Hawaii. So when you think of Hawaii, what do you think of? Moana? Yeah, Moana is probably a popular answer. What about the beaches and how the islands are surrounded by ocean? What about black sand beaches? Did you know that that's a thing? Yeah, black sand beaches, they're real. Volcanoes? And what about the hula dancers? What about surfers? Are you into surfing? So there's plenty of beautiful landscapes and fun activities when it comes to Hawaii. And this book is going to take us through the alphabet from A to Z. And there's a lot of information here. You're going to see a lot of words on the sides of the pages. And don't worry, we're not going to read it all. Some of them I'm actually going to skip, and others I'll just read a small portion of it. But this is definitely a book if you want to learn more about Hawaii. You can get the book, and you can also follow along and read everything in the book. Okay? So let's start with A. And guess what? What was on the cover. So A is for aloha. Aloha. It is our letter A, and it means so many things. It means hello, it means goodbye, and love to you. Fair wishes, this word brings. Over here, so we're going to take a look at this tower, but I'm going to tilt the book so I can read this. A is for the Aloha Tower. In the early 1900s, travel to and from the islands was done entirely by steamship. So basically by boats, not by airplane. And people of Honolulu built this tower on the harbor side of the piers to greet passengers or to send them home with a fond farewell. So this is basically the hello and goodbye tower. B, now I can't fold the book in half, so we're going to see both B and C, but this one's for B, and B is for bird state. The nene is a Hawaiian goose with feathers beige and brown. It lives atop the great volcanoes and never goes to town. So that bird is what we're talking about. And C is for the capital. Do you know what the capital is? I bet you've heard of this town. Hawaii's capital, Honolulu, is like a jewel so bright. It shines against the lush green mountains and sparkles in the night. And that's more or less what Honolulu looks like. D, ooh, D is for the dance of the hula. You see lots of dancers there. And it says there are two styles of hula, one older than the other. Kahiko is the ancient one. Aluana is the younger. Now, these words are going to be a little bit hard for me to say because I don't live in Hawaii and I don't know exactly how to pronounce all of their words. Some of them I'll get right, some of them I'll get wrong. That's just how it's going to go. That's part of travel, is that you get to learn new things. So here it says the ancient Hawaiians didn't have a written language. So they chanted their stories, and to add drama, they danced. Today, when you come to the islands, you'll see the ancient hula, which is performed to the sounds of drums and chanting, or you'll see the modern hula with smoother movements and guitars and singing. That's the difference between these two styles. E is for energy, right here. E is for other forms of energy. The trade winds shear the ridges and spin the windmills round. They turn the energy of the sky into electricity for our towns. And over here, F is for the state flower. Oh, there it is. Our F is for the yellow hibiscus, so delicate and fair. Its hues are like the sunshine, a state flower beyond compare. That's what the hibiscus looks like. F, oh, that was F. G is a big picture. We actually have a few things to say here. This says G is for state gem. The black coral of Hawaii grows in the deepest sea. It's the color of young lava and looks like a leafless tree. Now, in the deep sea, live black coral really isn't black at all. It's sometimes yellow or green or even orange. And when the polyps are gone, their crusty houses turn a very dark blackish brown. Also for G is the green sea turtle that you can see right here. Some people call them the birds of the ocean because of the way they fly through the water. Imagine a turtle just nice and smooth. Looks like they're flying through the water. Their flippers move in an up and down motion like the wings of a bird. So that's G, and that's a really fun picture. And H, I think you might like this one. H is for a word that's hard to say, but do you recognize it? Now, if you thought of Moana, you can picture her on this boat because this is one of those type of boats. And it's called, if I get this right, H is for the hokulea. Hawaii's hokulea is a modern voyaging canoe. It catches the wind in triangular sails like the ancient ones used to do. And it says, in ancient times, navigators used the stars and the tides, the currents, and the flight paths of birds to find their way across the vast landscapes of the Pacific. Do you remember Moana doing that? Looking at the bird or looking at the stars, right? So it's a part of their history. This is what they use in Hawaii. I is for the Iolani Palace. Right here. Now, Iolani Palace is the home of the Hawaii's kings. It's the only palace in America where the echo of the monarchy rings. So the Iolani Palace had electricity and telephones before the White House in Washington, D.C. So there was electricity and telephones here first. And then we go over to J. J is for Jasmine. And Princess Kaiulani, favored child of Hawaii, named Jasmine Blossoms for her peacocks and called them sweet pikake. So here's the peacock and here's the jasmine blossoms. And that's the princess, one of the princesses in the past. Now, here's another hard name because we're going to talk about the king for K. And K stands for king, but it also stands for his name, which is King Kamehameha, right here. It says King Kamehameha enjoyed both honor and fame. He united all the islands under one benevolent reign. So L is for leis. I'm sure you thought about those Hawaiian leis that you wear around your neck. So Hawaii's leis begin with L, sweet flowers sewn in garlands, a ring of greeting and of love that celebrates the islands. In Hawaii, a lei is a gift of aloha. It is a necklace of flowers that is given at a special occasion like a birthday or a graduation, an anniversary, even at the luau's and at farewell parties. The ancient Hawaiians even presented leis to their gods during solemn religious ceremonies, and farmers wore leis so that their crops would be blessed. Today, Hawaii celebrates Lei Day on May 1st of every year. There are lei making contests and lots of parties. Leis are an important part of the Hawaiian history. We go on to M, and M is for sea mammals. What do you see here? See some whales, dolphins, little sea otter possibly, or a seal. So M is for sea mammals. Dolphins, seals, and whales, mammals of the sea, ply the channel waters between the islands of Hawaii. Each year, from late November to early April, to mid-April, humpback whales migrate to the Hawaiian waters to breed, to give birth, and to nurse their young. Adult humpbacks grow to more than 40 feet long, and they weigh more than 40 tons. They usually congregate in the waters off Maui and along the Big Island's Kona coast. So you have a good chance of seeing these off of Maui and Kona. N and O are together. So N is for the natural resources. Can you see what she has in her hand? Does that look like a pineapple? N is for natural resources. The exports of Hawaii, pineapple, coffee, and sugarcane help fuel our state's economy. All of Hawaii's natural resources are found above the ground, so nothing that you have to like plant. Did you know that Hawaii is the only state in the US that grows coffee? Did you even know that coffee is grown? And more than 1/3 of the world's commercial supply of pineapples comes from the Aloha state. The Big Island of Hawaii is the world's leading supplier of macadamia nuts and orchids. So flowers and nuts and coffee and pineapple. Lots of nice things to try when you go to Hawaii. And then O is for Oahu. Most of Hawaii's people live on the island of Oahu. They play in Waikiki and go to work in Honolulu. See the surfer right here? Remember we talked about surfing? Let's see what's over here. It's the third largest Hawaiian island and the most densely populated. So most of the people live there. The state capital of Honolulu is located here, and so is the Honolulu International Airport. So chances are when you fly to Hawaii, you're going to fly into Honolulu. There's some other airports, but you might fly in here. There are over 100 world famous beaches on Oahu, along with 1/3 of the state's best surfing spots. The entire island is slightly larger than the city of Houston, Texas. The entire island is about the size of Houston. Kind of crazy. P. P is for the Polynesians. Okay. Polynesian explorers braved the open sea. Traveling through wind and blinding sun, they discovered Hawaii. And P is also for these petroglyphs. Petroglyphs, right? An ancient drawing that's etched into the lava rock and the stone. You can see those images here. I'm sure you've seen those before. The Hawaiians call these images, basically, it translates into stone carving. So petroglyphs are usually found in clusters, like those on the Big Island, in a place called Puako and near an old lighthouse on the island of Lanai. So here, you can have a glimpse back into the real people who settled on Hawaii back in, before we all could just hop on a plane and travel there. And when we talk about the Polynesian voyagers, without the aid of a compass, they navigated over 2,000 miles of open ocean, nearly 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus. A long time ago. Relying on the migratory patterns of seabirds and varied colorations in the clouds, the debris that floats in the water to see which way that goes, the scent of the reefs, these mariners accurately directed their large double-hulled canoes to the Hawaiian Islands. It takes a lot of talent. Q is for the Queen. I'm thinking, does Hawaii have a queen? Well, in the past, they did. So Hawaii's last queen, Lily Oukalani was her name. We'll just call her Lily. Lost her throne to businessmen, but her heart they could not claim. So after 4 years, a group of American businessmen overthrew the Hawaiian government, and they placed the queen under arrest in the palace. So the queen got placed under arrest, and then do you see what she's making here? So this is a quilt. So this is the hallmark of basically the Hawaiian quilt. The most famous quilt in Hawaii is the one that was made by the queen, and it's now on display in her prison room where she was kept on the second floor of the Iolani Palace. And the queen's quilt documents her 10-month imprisonment. So she was pretty much just like locked in there for 10 months. R is for rainforest. Whoop, almost dropped the book. There you go. Take a picture. What do you see here? Okay, so the rainforest, that letter R is for rainforest that rises in the mists. It is the home of native birds and legends, songs, and myths. The only tropical rainforest in the US is in Hawaii. R is also for rainbow. Did you see that up here? Right here's a rainbow. And in Hawaii, you can see half rainbows, full rainbows, double rainbows, triple rainbows, and even night rainbows that are illuminated by the full moon. Did you know that rainbows are always in front of you when your back is to the sun? Ancient Hawaiians believed that rainbows were bridges used by gods when they visited the world of men. S is for the state song. So it looks like they're playing a bunch of music, but it's for the song. King Kalakua, oh, I just said that really bad. The king wrote Hawaii Pono'i. It calls upon Hawaii's sons to promise loyalty. S is also for statehood, okay? So on August 21st of 1959, the U.S. voted 323 votes so 323 to 89, granting the statehood to the territory of Hawaii. So it became America's 50th state. Now, each year on the third Friday in August, so the third Friday in August, Hawaii celebrates Statehood Day. And T is for tsunamis. So it looks like a really good wave, right? Maybe some surfing, but this is supposed to be a little bit scarier. It's for a tsunami. Tsunamis do not come often to Hawaii shores, but when they do, these giant waves rise 100 feet or more. So tsunami is the Japanese word that describes a wave so large that it fills an entire harbor, from the ocean floor to the top of the fishing boat masts. Okay, these giant landslides, there's a lot of underwater earthquakes that can create tsunamis. And these waves can travel hundreds of miles per hour. So when these monsters get close to land, they hit the reef, they suck out the water, and then they come crashing onto shore. So Hawaii is located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, which is always on guard against these devastating waves. Now, they don't happen very often, so normally you don't have to be scared of these tsunamis when you go to Hawaii, but you do have to be aware that it could happen, and you have to know what to do in case there is an emergency. U is for ukulele. This is a double picture right here. So U is for ukulele, which is this instrument that he has in his hand. In Hawaiian, it means jumping flea. When you play it, fingers jump so fast on strings from key to key. So this is a cool little story. In the summer of 1879, a ship was carrying 400 people from Portugal, and it arrived in Hawaii. After sailing 15,000 miles in 4 months, a man named João Fernandes from the island of Madeira was so happy to finally be off the boat. He pulled out his friends basically like this, like a little ukulele, and he started playing folk songs. The Hawaiians were so amazed at the way his strange little fingers jumped all over the fingerboard that they call the little guitar or the ukulele, which means jumping flea. So his fingers were just like, and it would just look like a bunch of bugs. So today the ukulele accompanies all of Hawaii's music and has gained international acclaim. B, I think this is a fun one, is for volcanoes. Now, the chances of seeing the volcano erupt like that are pretty slim, but powerful shield volcanoes made our island home. Jagged A'a and smooth Pahoho lava spews from cylinder cones. So you have smooth lava and you also have like the jagged lava. So Hawaii sits atop the world's biggest mountain range, all made of volcanoes. You can ski on the one volcano in the morning, and less than 90 minutes later or an hour and a half later, you can be on the hot sun, laying on the beach in the hot sun. So you can go skiing on the top of the volcanoes and then also enjoy laying on the beach. A new island named Loihi is being formed beneath the ocean. Just south of the Big Island, there's this new island being formed, but it's not yet out above the water. And the scientists say Loihi will emerge in 10,000 years. So in 10,000 years, if we're all still around, we can go enjoy another island of Hawaii. W is for weather. The weather in Hawaii is always nice and warm. The sun shines bright and winds blow cool unless there is a storm. So people from all over the world come to Hawaii in the winter to enjoy the beaches and the tropical weather. The average daytime temperature in January is a warm 72 degrees. And no matter what time of year, it never gets below 50 degrees. However, it does get really cold on the top of those mountains that we just talked about, or those volcanoes where the snow caps its lava slopes. So keep that in mind. It can get colder when you rise in elevation, but for the most part, this is just a very consistent place that's very pleasant to go visit. And X marks the spot. In the Pacific Ocean, where the trade winds keep our swaying palms in motion. And you can see the X is right here, where it says Hawaii. Okay, but there's all of these other lines right here. Do you see that that's Alaska? All the way up here, this line goes past Alaska, and then Hawaii's out in the ocean. Why does it say that? So, Captain James Cook stumbled across Hawaii, and he was the first recorded European to arrive here. But he also explored Alaska. So when you're in Alaska and there's like a Cook Inlet and there's a few other things with named after the same captain that basically discovered Hawaii. Those are not close together. So that's pretty impressive that he just, sailed all over the place. Y is for yesteryear. It took so many Hawaiian gods to govern all of life. They watched from temples made of stone through day and darkest nights. And you can see some statues that depict the gods that were the Hawaiian gods. And the ancient Hawaiians worshipped gods and goddesses that ruled over nature. The four major gods were of sunlight, of fresh water, and one of them was of sunlight, fresh water, and natural life. Another one was over war and all of male power. The other one was ruled over peace and fertility, the wind, the rain, and sports. And the fourth god ruled over the ocean. So this is kind of neat because think of Moana again, okay? There's some history that is brought into that movie. So the lesser gods and demigods were Pele, which is the god of fire, La, the god of sun, Paliahu, the god of snow, Laka, the god of hula, and Maui, the trickster. Yes, Maui's in this book too. Do you remember like Maui, like with all of his tattoos and, and that little dude that like sat in his tattoos? All right. Let's do one more thing about Y. Y is also for the color yellow, and that's sacred. That was the sacred color in Hawaii. And why do you think? Because yellow is the color of the sun. And that was really important to give life to the land. And it's also the color of the hot molten lava that created the islands. Okay, and Z, our last letter right here, it is for time zone. So the different time zones, okay? So the time zone is our letter Z. Hawaiian Standard Time, they say, we see the final sunset of every American day. So because Hawaii lies in the middle of the ocean and because it's so isolated, it has its own time zone called Hawaiian Standard Time. Hawaii lies far enough south that it doesn't need to switch hours. So you know how we fall behind and we spring ahead. They don't really change their time. So sometimes it is behind, behind Eastern time. Sometimes it's 5 hours behind us. Sometimes it's 6 hours behind us because we move, but Hawaii doesn't. And like they said, because it's the furthest state all the way to the west, they get the final sunset of every American day. So as you can see that's a sunset, and that wraps up our book. So thanks for taking the trip to Hawaii with us today. That was so much fun, and I am Cassie. Next week, our adventure heads on the other side of the world to another huge country, to Russia. And we will see you there.